with artificial intelligence.
Speaking of Spotify, have you heard about all this like drama with Joe Rogan?
Oh, yeah. I've been keeping up with it.
So I was like kind of curious because I actually didn't really know what Rumble was. So who is Rumble and why would they offer Joe Rogan $100 million?
They're like a podcast company too. I see they actually get a lot of YouTubers to do podcasts with them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think they've got like a pretty cool, cool. They got a pretty strong strategy right now to try to get new creators on the platform. But surprisingly, this is something I didn't know. Rumble's from Canada.
Okay.
Toronto based. So kind of a cool story. I'll kind of give you the quick history of Rumble. Basically, the CEO from Toronto started a video streaming tool called Jokeroo, I think it's called.
Okay.
And this is back when there was multiple video platforms, and then YouTube just kind of became the monopoly, beat everybody out. And this guy was sitting in the corner all pissed off. He's like, yo, I hate YouTube. And, low-key, he's coming back for a vengeance now. But anyway, he was kind of upset about the fact that, YouTube had a monopoly on YouTube. Fast forward a couple of years later, 2013, he noticed YouTube started prioritizing big influencers over new creators, which is something that we know, right? Like the algorithm on YouTube started to get more difficult to be discovered on, much different than TikTok is today. And that's when he created Rumble as a tool to help those creators who he felt like YouTube was neglecting.
Kind of like almost like a Patreon sort of thing.
I think it's just a tool it's more open. So it doesn't have like all the same, it doesn't have the same censorship, the same algorithm kind of telling people what to watch. So it kind of gives everybody like a fair chance.
Gotcha.
And crazy, today Rumbles now has a $2 billion valuation.
No way.
Yeah. So they're really, really, really growing, and it's kind of cool.
Is it still like, do they have their own platform then?
Yeah.
Okay.
YouTube. It's like YouTube videos and audio. It's just like content. So it's kind of like a combination of Spotify and YouTube.
Gotcha.
But I would say they're more leaning towards YouTube. Now, the interesting thing is they've offered Joe Rogan $100 million, which is actually the same sum of money that Spotify offered him for their licensing deal.
No kidding.
And they're offering him $25 million a year for 4 years. So it's a 4-year, $100 million deal. Now, I don't know if it's legit. It might just be really good marketing because we're talking about it now.
For sure.
But here's something kind of funny. Of all the top biggest hitters on the Rumble platform, and this is where a lot of the controversy comes from, one of the biggest guys on there, Dan Bongino, his main topics are Joe Biden criticism, vaccine mandates, and big tech maleficence.
Yeah.
And
so some like InfoWars type stuff.
Yeah. And then number 2, Donald Trump Jr., Democratic Party incompetence, defending his dad. Those are his 2 topics. And then Steve Bannon, electoral fraud, COVID-19, and then MAGA revivalism. And then you have Russell Brand, skepticism of politicians, mainstream media, and big business. Now, Russell Brand's probably the only person on that list I could probably listen to. And it's kind of interesting that he's been like now bundled in with the far right because they're saying like everybody on Rumble is far right. But this guy from Canada didn't start it for that reason.
It kind of sounds like a far right, like Rumble. I just feel like if you said, have you been on Rumble before? I'd be like, it just sounds like a far right thing.
It sounds like a dirty place, but it's not. And actually, this is kind of the point I wanted to get across was like this platform, it's become like a safe haven for right-wing personalities because they can't safely talk about it on YouTube. So my question to you is who created Rumble? Far-right extremists or YouTube?
Who created it? I mean, I think
the problem that it is.
Oh,
who's responsible?
Yeah. Well, I think realistically, the platform is all whoever is in the that's who it is. So at the end of it, think about why OnlyFans has its name, right? OnlyFans is arguably speaking a Patreon alternative. You go on OnlyFans because I want to make money from my fans, give them exclusive content. But because they have accepted a certain demographic of people, right? Porn stars or, cam girls, etc. Well, that's now what it's affiliated with, right? That's almost become the community. So I would say it's definitely been people like Donald Trump Jr. and Steve Bannon and you said number one, I forget.
Dan Bongino.
Dan Bongino, yeah. So I think they are arguably the one making that platform.
Yeah, I disagree because I think a platform like this, like the creators of it from the research I did, there's no like right-wing affiliations. Now they did get investment from some right-wing politicians or groups, but I think they were only like you can't stop who wants to fund your project, right? The reason that they were funding it is because YouTube censorship, and the way that social media has been going as far as like just censoring people's voices. And there are obviously times where there's grounds for it. But where I think things are starting to get kind of gray area is when people are getting censored and there's not really grounds for it, like getting censored for things that turns out that ends up being true. For example, like YouTube's had a couple of incidents in the past couple of years where they didn't let people say certain things or certain theories, and then they turned out to be true. And I think that seems like an overreach by the people. Like the people are feeling like, hey, like we can't talk about stuff, and then it turns out to be true, and then there's like no repercussions because YouTube doesn't have any, there's no governing body, right? So I feel like there almost needs to be a second platform so people have that freedom of speech, I guess. But I'm wondering, like, do you think the role that the giants play as far as censorship is going to create these places? And do you think it'll be actually more destructive? Because now that YouTube isn't allowing discourse and having discussions from both sides, all the people that feel alienated are going to one platform where they're just in an echo chamber. And now they're going to become more radicalized. So to me, it's like, what is the net result? I actually think YouTube, the net result of their censorship is actually more extremism.
Yeah, I don't know, because you have to look at the current landscape of how our entire world is in right now. When you have fear everywhere, when you have scientists who don't even know the next step on what to do, it's hard for anyone to really accurately depict as to what is a conspiracy theory to later on being what's real, right?
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
Will Joe Rogan go to Rumble?
I don't think he can.
I don't think he would, even if he had the choice.
Yeah, because I don't know if he wants to be affiliated, because he actually considers himself on the left, right? So I don't know if he wants to be affiliated with that.
I know with all the controversy he has, like, I know obviously there's some liability he has, obviously, but at the same time, I think that's just a bad look for him if he goes completely over there, because he is a skeptic, right? Like a center-leaning people.
I think it's important. I think he's important that we have, because I think as soon as we lose him, like there's nobody that the left is willing to listen to that will allow for conversation of both sides, which is kind of sad. Like there's like only one guy left, really, that I can think of. Like, can you think of anybody else?
No, there's probably a lot, but Joe Rogan.
That are big.
Him and us.
Him and us.
Yeah, the Fast Forward podcast.